The human's small shuttle drifted through the debris field, its engines coughing weak sparks into the cold silence of space. Inside, Elias Carter, once a proud pilot from Earth's exploration fleet, now sat slumped in his seat, staring at the blinking red lights. His oxygen levels were dropping fast, and the nearest human base was half a sector away. He had been stranded for 3 days after a pirate ambush near the edge of Athelia Prime, a massive planet wrapped in thick blue clouds. His distress calls went unanswered. Most likely, no one was even listening. The universe, he thought bitterly, wasn't kind to humans these days. They were the newcomers, the weak ones among a galaxy of towering ancient species. Humanity had joined the interstellar community just 30 years ago, and already they were struggling to survive among giants. Elias leaned back and closed his eyes, whispering, "If someone's out there, anyone, please respond." The radio crackled. At first it was only static. Then a deep melodic voice, distinctly not human, echoed through his speakers. "Small vessel, your life signs are failing. Identify yourself before I bring you aboard." Elias blinked, startled. This is Pilot Elias Carter, Human Exploration Fleet. My ship is disabled. Please, I mean no harm." There was a pause. Then the voice returned, calm and commanding. "Do not struggle. I am extending a tractor field. You will be safe." Before he could answer, his shuttle shuddered violently. A blinding blue light swallowed the view outside as the tractor beam locked on. Within minutes, the shuttle was pulled toward an enormous shadow. A ship so vast it looked like a floating mountain. The Athelian dreadnought loomed above him, sleek and silent. It was easily 20 times larger than any human cruiser. When the airlock hissed open, Elias stumbled out, dizzy from the sudden gravity shift. The corridor he stepped into was lined with silver vines that pulsed softly, like veins of living metal. Everything was scaled enormous, ceilings 20 feet high, doors that could fit an elephant. And then she appeared. A figure emerged from the mist at the far end of the hall, 12 feet tall, with shimmering gray skin and eyes that glowed a soft amber. Her movements were graceful but heavy, like a mountain walking on air. Her armor, carved from crystal plates, shimmered faintly as she approached. Elias froze, his heart pounding. He had never seen an Athelian up close before. The giantess tilted her head slightly. "You are small," she said, her voice resonating through the chamber like music. "Fragile, yet you survived a pirate ambush?" Elias swallowed. "Luck, mostly." "Luck," she repeated with a hint of amusement. "Few creatures in this galaxy believe in that anymore." She stepped closer, and he had to tilt his head all the way back to meet her gaze. Despite her size, her eyes were gentle, curious, almost lonely. "I am Lady Sarathna, widow of House Var," she said formally. "You are aboard my ship, the Sovereign Flame." "You are safe, human." Elias bowed slightly. "Thank you, Lady Sarathna. I owe you my life." She studied him for a long moment. "You are not like the others I have met. They speak loudly, boast of conquests. You speak softly." "I don't have much to boast about," he said, forcing a weak smile. For the first time, she smiled back, a small, strange expression that lit her sharp features. "Honesty is rare. You may keep it." Hours later, Elias sat in a chamber that served as both dining hall and observation deck. Through the wide window, Athelia Prime rotated below, its surface glowing faintly with green and blue storms. Sarathna entered quietly, carrying a tray of food that smelled faintly sweet. "You must eat," she said, placing it before him. He blinked. "You cooked for me?" She frowned slightly. "You are my guest. I have not forgotten the old ways." The food, some kind of soft, fruit-like dish, was surprisingly pleasant, warm, sweet, and slightly tangy. As he ate, she sat across from him, watching the stormy planet with distant eyes. "Your kind fascinates me," she said finally. "So young yet so reckless. You build ships that should not fly and challenge species far older than your son." Elias chuckled softly. That's humanity, all right. We stumble forward, even when we shouldn't. She turned to face him. You are struggling, are you not? Your kind's colonies are starving, your fleet is fractured. He looked down at his hands. We're trying to survive. It's not easy when everyone out there sees us as pests. Not all see you that way, Sarathna said quietly. Some see potential. He raised an eyebrow. Do you? There was a pause. Then, to his surprise, the giantess leaned slightly forward and said in a tone both regal and strange, I need a husband, and you need healthy offspring. Elias nearly choked on his food. Excuse me? Her amber eyes flickered with amusement. Do not misunderstand, human. My house is dying. My people value strength, courage, and survival. You have all three. I have lost my mate, but tradition demands I continue my line. He blinked rapidly, unsure if he was dreaming. You mean me? You are not repulsive, she said bluntly. You are small, yes, but not weak. And your species' genetics are adaptable. It is a logical arrangement. Elias rubbed his forehead. This is a lot to take in. Sarathna smiled faintly. You will think on it. Humans always need time to think. I will not force you. He stared at her, speechless. Then she stood, towering over him once again. Rest, Elias Carter. Tomorrow I will show you Athelia Prime. Perhaps then you will understand what is at stake. That night, Elias lay in the soft bed provided for him, far too large for a single human, staring at the alien ceiling above. He couldn't sleep. His mind replayed her words over and over. A husband, offspring. He had come out here to explore the stars, not to be someone's mate. But there was something else beneath her offer, something deeper than survival or tradition. Her voice had carried a loneliness that mirrored his own. He turned on his side, watching the glow of the storm outside the window. Maybe, he thought, fate was stranger than he ever believed, and maybe this was humanity's chance, not to conquer, but to connect. Far away in the command chamber, Sarathna watched the same storms with quiet eyes. Her people were fading, her world losing hope. Yet for the first time in years she felt something she hadn't in decades. Curiosity. And a spark of warmth. Humans, she whispered softly to herself. Always surprising. When the ship entered the atmosphere of Athelia Prime, Elias Carter felt the shuttle shake like it was riding on thunder. Through the large viewport he saw a world covered in endless storms of blue lightning and swirling green clouds. Beneath the storms were vast continents that shone with crystal forests and silver oceans that reflected light like mirrors. He had never seen anything so strange or so beautiful. Beside him stood Lady Sarathna, tall and calm, her eyes glowing softly as she guided the ship. Do not fear the storms, she said. They feed our planet. The lightning gives power to the roots below. Elias blinked. Power to the roots? She nodded. Our world is alive, human. Every tree, every vine, even the stones below, all are part of a great network. The storms recharge it. The human pilot looked again and saw it. Faint lines of light running through the ground, connecting forests and mountains like veins of energy. It was a living world, pulsing slowly, breathing beneath their feet. When they landed, the ship's ramp opened with a soft hiss. Warm air rushed in, smelling faintly like rain and metal. The ground was smooth crystal, glowing dimly where he stepped. Towering plants with silver leaves swayed in the wind, and the sound of distant thunder rolled across the horizon. Elias stepped down carefully. It's incredible. Sarathna smiled, a rare and soft expression. It is dying, she said quietly. The storms are growing weaker. The roots no longer pulse as before. My people fear that Athelia Prime will soon fall silent. He looked up at her, frowning. Is that why you need offspring? To continue your kind? Yes, she said, turning to face the horizon. Our numbers fall every year. Males die in the storms. The children that survive are few. My mate was lost 2 cycles ago. I am the last of my house. Elias was silent. He could hear the grief hidden behind her steady voice. Despite her size and power, she sounded almost human. They traveled toward the city in an open hovercraft that floated above the glowing paths. As they moved, Elias saw great spires made of crystal rising high into the mist. Bridges of light connected them. The city looked like a reflection of the stars above. At the gate, armored guards bowed deeply to Sarathna. Each was nearly as tall as she was, their armor gleaming, but their faces showed surprise when they noticed Elias walking beside her. "Lady Sarathna," one said, "is this a human?" "Yes," she answered simply. "He is my guest." The guards exchanged uneasy looks but said nothing more. They stepped aside, allowing them to pass. Inside the city, Elias felt hundreds of eyes on him. The Athelians were giants, elegant, strong, and proud. They walked with slow, graceful steps. Their clothes shimmered like living silk, and their voices echoed softly through the air. The human's small frame drew curious stares. He could feel himself shrinking under their gaze. A small group of Athelian scholars approached, holding glowing tablets. One, an elderly female with pale eyes, bowed slightly to Sarathna. "Lady of Var," she said, "it has been many cycles. We heard you returned with a companion." Sarathna nodded. "This is Elias Carter of Earth. He is here under my protection." The scholar studied him closely. A fragile being. Yet there is a strange strength in his eyes. "Are you certain, my lady, that this alliance is wise?" Sarathna's voice hardened. "It is my decision." The scholar bowed again and stepped back. "Then may the roots guide you." Elias followed Sarathna into a tall building made of blue crystal. Inside, light filtered through the walls, painting the floor with patterns like ripples on water. The room was filled with small floating orbs that pulsed gently. Some kind of living data storage, he guessed. Sarathna motioned for him to sit. "You should understand what this world needs," she said, "before you decide anything." She touched one of the floating orbs and a soft light filled the air. Images appeared of Athelia Prime long ago. The storms were bright and full of color, the forests glowing strongly. Giants walked among them, thousands in number, their laughter echoing like thunder. Then the images changed. The storms darkened. The glow of the roots faded. The people became fewer and fewer. "Our world depends on balance," she said quietly. "When the roots weaken, so does our life. The energy that flows through our bodies comes from the same source. When the planet weakens, so do we." Elias watched silently. He could see how much this world meant to her, not as a ruler, but as a living being connected to it. "And you think mixing with humans might help?" She looked at him, her golden eyes calm but intense. "Human DNA adapts quickly. Your kind survives almost anywhere, deserts, ice, radiation. You change faster than any other species. Perhaps your blood can give ours new life." He took a deep breath. "You don't want a husband for yourself. You want hope for your people." She was silent for a long moment, then said softly, "Both, perhaps." That evening, as the twin moons of Athelia rose above the storm clouds, Elias walked through the glowing gardens near the palace. The plants hummed faintly, reacting to his steps. It was peaceful but heavy, the kind of peace that felt like it could break at any moment. He sat on a stone bench, thinking. Every instinct told him to leave, to return to human space, to avoid getting tangled in alien politics. But another part of him, the explorer, the dreamer, and couldn't ignore what he had seen. Humanity was struggling too. Earth's colonies were scattered and weak. Trade agreements were breaking. If he could somehow create a link between humans and Athelians, maybe both species could survive together. He was deep in thought when Sarathna approached. Her armor was gone, replaced by a robe made of silver threads that shimmered softly under the moonlight. She looked less like a warrior and more like a living statue of light. "You are troubled," she said, sitting beside him. The bench creaked slightly under her weight. Elias smiled faintly. "Just thinking." "Of what?" "Of how strange the universe is," he said. "I was dying alone in space, and now I'm sitting on an alien world, being asked to save a species I barely understand." She chuckled softly, the sound low and deep. "Fate is rarely gentle." He looked up at her. "You said you wouldn't force me. Do you really mean that?" She nodded slowly. "I do. My people may need you, but I will not take what is not given. Choice is sacred." Elias looked into her eyes, searching for any hint of deceit, but found none. She was serious, proud but honest. Then he said, "I'll help you, but not because of duty, because maybe this is what I was meant to find out here. For a moment, Sarathna said nothing. Then her lips curved into a faint, almost surprised smile. Then we begin as partners, not as prey and predator. Elias grinned. That sounds fair. She extended one enormous hand toward him, palm open. He hesitated only a moment before placing his small hand in hers. Her skin felt cool, almost metallic, but alive. When she closed her fingers gently around his, a strange warmth spread through his chest. Not just physical, but something deeper. Like two worlds touching for the first time. The storm above flashed, and for an instant, the whole garden lit up. Come, Sarathna said, standing. There is one more thing you must see. They walked together toward a massive tower at the city's center. Inside, a glowing pool of blue energy filled the floor. The air crackled softly around it. This is the root nexus, Sarathna said, the heart of Athelia Prime. Every living thing is connected through this. When the roots weaken, all of us fade. Elias stared at the glowing pool. It's alive. Yes, she said. And soon it may die. Unless something changes. He looked at her, realizing the weight of what she carried. Not just her house, but her entire species. And for the first time since leaving Earth, Elias felt something he hadn't in years. Purpose. He turned toward her and said quietly, Then let's save your world. Sarathna's eyes glowed brighter. Then you are truly one of us now. Thunder rolled across the city and lightning flared in the distance. The Athelians looked up from the streets as the storms pulsed brighter than before, as if the planet itself had heard their promise. Days turned into weeks on Athelia Prime, and Elias Carter began to understand just how fragile the world truly was. The once bright storms had dimmed. The glowing veins beneath the surface flickered weakly like a dying heartbeat. Everywhere he went, he could see worry in the eyes of the Athelians. They were a proud race, tall, graceful, and intelligent. But even their pride could not hide their fear. The great root nexus which powered their world was fading. Without it, both the planet and its people would perish. Elias and Lady Sarathna worked side by side in the great halls of the Nexus Tower. He studied their data archives, learning what he could from their ancient technology. They had knowledge far beyond human science, but their systems were breaking down in ways they could not repair. One evening, as the thunder rumbled above, Sarathna watched Elias closely while he worked. His small hands moved quickly across the glowing console, connecting wires and analyzing readings. She found herself silently admiring his focus and patience. You work like one who has no fear, she said. He glanced up with a faint smile. When you've almost died in space, fear becomes smaller. She tilted her head. You are strange, human. So fragile, yet so stubborn. He laughed softly. That's what makes us human. She smiled faintly at that, a rare and genuine expression. Together, they discovered something unexpected. The root nexus was alive, but it was slowly starving. The energy that once flowed through the planet came from the storms themselves. The lightning recharged the world, feeding the roots below. But something had changed in the upper atmosphere. The storms no longer reached the same strength. Elias studied the readings carefully. The problem isn't the roots, he said. It's the sky. The ion fields above your planet are collapsing. If we can reactivate them, the storms will return. Sarathna looked at him in surprise. You believe you can restore the storms? Maybe, he said. But I'll need to reach the old storm towers in the upper clouds. You said they were abandoned long ago. They are unstable, she warned. Even our ships avoid them. He looked up at her calmly. Then it's a good thing humans are bad at listening to warnings. Sarathna gave him a long look, part disapproval, part admiration. You remind me of my mate, she said softly. He too believed that courage could fix anything. Maybe it can, Elias said quietly. The next day, the sovereign flame rose once more into the storm-filled sky. Thick clouds swirled around them, lightning flashing in endless patterns. The storm towers, massive spires of metal and crystal, pierced through the clouds like ancient giants. Sarathna piloted the ship, her movements graceful despite the violent winds. Elias worked at the side station, preparing tools and equipment. When they reached the first tower, Sarathna guided the ship to a docking ring. The tower groaned under the force of the wind, its surface cracked and scorched from centuries of storms. Elias took a deep breath and put on his pressure suit. If this works, the storms might recharge the nexus again. Sarathna frowned. And if it fails? Then we try again, he said simply. She hesitated, then placed a massive hand gently on his shoulder. "Return alive, Elias Carter. Athelia still needs you," he smiled. "Yes, ma'am." The tower's interior was dark and filled with mist. Metal walkways led to a central control core. Elias moved carefully, guided by the faint light from his wrist console. The readings were weak. The power grid was almost dead. He connected his portable generator and began rerouting energy to the core. Sparks jumped. The air crackled. Come on," he muttered. Outside, Sarathna watched through the monitors. "He is inside the storm's heart," she whispered. The readings from the tower flickered, then stabilized. "He's doing it." But then a tremor shook the entire tower. The lightning outside surged violently. The system was unstable. Centuries of damage had weakened it. "Elias," she called through the comms. "The tower is collapsing." Inside, Elias braced himself as a beam of energy erupted from the core. Panels flew off and the walkway cracked beneath him. But he held his ground, gripping the console with both hands. "Just a little longer," he shouted. The console blinked, then turned green. A loud hum filled the air as the tower's crystal spire lit up with bright blue light. The storm outside roared, flashing brighter than it had in decades. The energy raced through the clouds, leaping from tower to tower, awakening ancient systems across the planet. Sarathna stared in awe. He did it. Elias stumbled out of the tower moments before a lightning strike shattered the upper section. He barely made it to the ship's airlock as debris fell around him. Sarathna reached out, grabbing him and pulling him inside with one powerful motion. He collapsed against the wall, breathing hard but smiling. "Told you humans were stubborn." Sarathna laughed in a sound of pure relief and joy. "You are more than stubborn, Elias Carter. You are impossible." Outside, the storms blazed brighter than ever. Lightning spread like rivers of light across the sky. The planet pulsed with renewed energy. The root nexus reawakened. When they returned to the city, the difference was clear. The glowing veins beneath the ground shone once more, steady and bright. The crystal towers hummed softly. Athelians gathered in the streets, watching the light return to their world. Elias stepped out of the ship, exhausted but smiling. He had grease stains on his face and burn marks on his suit, but he stood tall. The council of elders awaited them at the palace gates. The eldest, a silver-haired Athelia named Malor, bowed deeply before Sarathna. "Lady of Var," he said, "the storms have returned. The Nexus lives again. You have saved us." Sarathna shook her head slightly. "Not I." "He did." The elders turned to Elias. The human's small form looked almost childlike beside them, but their eyes were full of respect. One of them asked, "You risked your life for a world not your own. Why?" Elias looked up at the towering figures and said simply, "Because that's what humans do. We help, we fight. We don't give up, even when we should." For a moment, there was silence. Then the elder smiled faintly. "Then may your courage live among our roots forever." That night, Sarathna stood on her balcony, looking out over the shining city. The lightning danced across the sky, casting blue light over her armor. Elias joined her, his steps quiet. "Beautiful view," he said softly. "It was dying," she said. "And you brought it back to life," he shrugged. "You helped." She turned to face him. "We both did. Together." They stood side by side in silence, watching the storms. Finally, Sarathna said, "You have done more for Athelia than any of my kind in centuries. You gave us a future. My offer still stands, Elias Carter. Not out of need, but of choice. Will you stay among us?" Elias looked out at the glowing world below. He thought of Earth, broken colonies, struggling people, endless wars. And then he thought of this world, reborn from ashes because two different species chose to trust each other. He smiled softly. "Maybe I will. Someone has to make sure those storms don't die again." Sarathna nodded, her eyes warm. "Then you are one of us now. Not as a husband, not as an outsider, but as a guardian of our world." He looked up at her and said, "And you're one of ours. Humanity doesn't forget its friends." A flash of lightning illuminated them both, a giant and a human, standing together as equals. Years later, legends would spread across both human and Athelian space. They spoke of the small man who reignited a dying world, and the giant widow who saw hope in him. Together, they built something greater than either species had ever known, a bond between worlds. And whenever the storms of Athelia glowed too bright, the people would smile and say the human is working again,